Well, Israel not only has impunity to help the U.S. government crack down on free speech, but also to continue carrying out mass murder and a starvation siege in Gaza. And this week, we saw more journalists lose their lives as a result. Israel killed multiple journalists deliberately in Gaza, as they've done since the start of the genocide. And let's hear how the Trump administration responded to all of this. At the State Department, Shahab Ratanzi of
Al Jazeera
questioned the State Department spokesperson about this.
Two more journalists, Hossam Shabat of Al Jazeera Mubashir, Mohammed Mansour of Palestine Today. That brings the number to 208. Each one was individually targeted. The IDF says they used extensive intelligence gathering and precise munitions. Shabat killed in his car, Mansour in his house. The Committee to Protect Journalists has once again noted that the deliberate targeted killing of journalists is a war crime. Do you have any comment?
I would say that every single thing that's happening is a result of Hamas and its choices to drag that region down into a level of suffering that has been excruciating and has caused innumerable deaths. And of course, their reaction on October 7th.
Innumerable?
And people were living in some relative peace. They decided to break that with an atrocity that was just certainly the most Jews killed in a single framework than during the Holocaust. And we also, I can tell you, we stand by Israel and its needs as it defends itself through this period of time, as we also work with them so that they don't need to defend themselves from the barbarity of an entity that has destroyed lives for generations and continues to. So for everyone who has, so many people who do so many jobs and who've lived different lives, and the children and the babies who didn't have a chance to seek their fortunes or their life dreams because of the barbarity of certain people.
Anyway, we get it. Everything's Hamas's fault. Israel can kill as many people as it wants to, including the journalists covering the mass murder of their people. And according to the State Department spokesperson, living under military occupation and a siege, as Gaza was on the morning of October 7th, is called relative peace. That's a relative peace, which Palestinians are just supposed to accept and not protest as they live in relative peace under Israeli occupation.
That's Tammy Bruce, the new State Department spokesperson, has a very colorful history as a right-wing radio host. Replaced Matt Miller. I mean, I won't go into her history, but it's very colorful, to say the least. And she has no background in regional affairs, diplomacy, or anything related to the work of the State Department. She's just sort of a Trump loyalist. So she's doing the best she can there. She's talking about journalists who are deliberately murdered by Israel. And Israel is not even attempting to deny that it deliberately murdered Hossam Shabat, who, I mean, if you look at just his Twitter account from the last 17 months, you could produce a blockbuster film on the genocide. He told the story of this Holocaust from the beginning, from the closest to the front lines that anyone could get. He's from Beit Hanun, which is one of the most destroyed areas in northern Gaza. I've been there. I was there in 2014, and much of it was destroyed then. And he's been in there in areas where no other journalist would dare to go. I mean, a complete profile and courage, going out every day to tell the story of this genocide. Just like his colleagues who were deliberately murdered by Israel. I mean, to his right is Ismail Al-Ghul from Al Jazeera, who was targeted, as I mentioned before, with a drone strike while he was seated in his car, decapitated. And to his left, the journalist whose name I'm forgetting right now received text messages from the Israeli military telling him they were going to kill him days before they assassinated him. The Israeli military has said that Hossam Shabat in the middle was in a Hamas sniper division, which is funny because he was always wearing that press vest throughout the last 17 months. And instead of holding a gun, he was holding a camera and a microphone. Why wasn't he fighting if he was a Hamas sniper? What the Israeli army has done is because these journalists have been getting in the way of them being able to carry out a genocide in the darkness, where they're not allowing any Western reporters in, and not many Western reporters are really making that much of an effort to get in. They have listed all of these reporters that they intend to kill as Hamas operatives to convince the world that they should be killed. And you see the State Department has given them total impunity to do so by declaring it's Hamas's fault that over 200 journalists have been killed. I don't think the Biden administration would have said that. They would have said, well, we mourn them, and to put out some boilerplate and done nothing to punish Israel for it. But now the Trump administration is just openly coming out and saying, it's okay, kill all the journalists you want. They're all Hamas.
Yeah. And how did the U.S. media respond here to these latest killings of Palestinian journalists? Again, silence, no outrage, no condemnation, because they don't see people covering the mass murder by Israel in Gaza as colleagues. They see them as enemies, because not only are they doing their job of covering factually the genocide of Palestinians, but they're Palestinians who are othered and just not deemed to be equal human beings in the eyes of Western chauvinists who do the bidding of Israel. So it's another example of the impunity Israel has to just slaughter the people documenting their crimes.
They're complicit. They're involved. I mean, they helped sell the genocide in the beginning, and now they're pretending it's not even happening. I mean, it's been backpaged in all the papers. As we discussed earlier, the corporate networks aren't covering it, and we're witnessing some of the worst horrors. I mean, we're waking up again. If you follow content from journalists in Gaza, from accounts focused on Gaza, you're waking up every morning to footage of shrouds of dead children, children being pulled from rubble, men screaming over the corpses of their family members. Witnessed video yesterday. It must have been, it was taken from a cell phone. Someone who was killed in a bombing, filming the last minutes of him and his family in their home as they were being bombed.
There was another one this week from a mosque. There was an Israeli attack on a mosque this week, and you have footage of people bleeding in sharp pain with their limbs blown off on the floor.
Imagine if that was a synagogue. If it was a synagogue, the whole world would have stopped.
Like, does that count as an anti-Semitic attack? Bombing people inside of a mosque? That sounds like an anti-Semitic attack to me. But yet no one cares. And the fact that Israel's still imposing its starvation siege of Gaza, which is just the most blatant war crime there is, collective punishment of a civilian population, now that's just deemed to be worthy and just part of war. Imagine if Russia put a starvation siege on Ukraine, blocking all humanitarian aid, food, water. I mean, this would be around the clock story. In Gaza, it's completely normalized.